Harken back to 2019 when All Elite Wrestling was first announced. It was hailed as a revolution to the professional wrestling world in America. While AEW does have its detractors and some well-warranted criticism, you cannot deny the in-ring storytelling TK and the men and women of the AEW roster have been able to put together. And now that we're hot on the heels of AEW Revolution, let's go through the past of AEW to see which matches had Dave Meltzer tingling with 5-star ratings. This is Extreme League Wrestling, and here are our top 10 AEW matches of all time so far. Number 10, Jon Moxley vs. Kenny Omega Full Gear 2019 Lights Out match. How could we forget the entrance that started it all? Jon Moxley's debut at the first ever Double or Nothing pay-per-view set the tone of AEW for the future. Not only attacking the man that he would later defeat for the AEW World title in Chris Jericho, but setting up his first ever blood feud with one Kenny Omega, the professional wrestling god himself. Moxley throwing Omega off of the poker chip is not only going to be a moment set in highlight reels of All Elite Wrestling for years to come, but their extremely violent feud was a lightning bolt of energy through the infancy of AEW Dynamite. As their feud progressively got more violent with backstage attacks, people being sent through glass coffee tables, etc., everything was finally set to blow off in an unsanctioned match at AEW's first ever Full Gear pay-per-view. This is really the first match that introduced the style of deathmatch wrestling that both men were aware of with their time on the indies and in Japan respectively. How can we forget weapon spots like the barbed wire broom that Omega hit Moxley's back with, the gold chain Jon Moxley would choke out Omega with while tearing the entire ring apart, and of course, the barbed wire spider web wheeled out by the Young Bucks. This match was made to make people talk about All Elite Wrestling, and boy did people talk about it. Some found this match to be too violent, while others praised AEW for going against the grain in the American wrestling landscape. But this match did set the stage for one of the longest standing rivalries in All Elite Wrestling. While Kenny Omega and Jon Moxley may not wrestle each other every night on Dynamite or at every pay-per-view, you know when these two men face off against each other, they're going to make magic in that ring. Are you enjoying the video so far? If so, why don't you stay around a while? Hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss our next upload. Jon Moxley vs. Eddie Kingston I Quit match Full Gear 2020. When AEW was created, it was seen to be an alternative to the WWE style of professional wrestling. And when you're trying to become a viable alternative from WWE, your matches have to be different and your performers have to be different. And I can think of no other match and no other professional wrestlers that have that at their core more than Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston. Both veterans of the 2000s independent scene that birthed All Elite Wrestling, this feud and match was finally the opportunity Eddie Kingston needed to show that he is a main eventer, and I say that with my whole chest. Eddie Kingston put the Mad and Mad King foaming at the mouth to show that he belonged on this stage. He deserved to be AEW champion, and he deserved to main event a pay-per-view, while his friend Jon Moxley was trying to wheel him away from the dark side. But Jon was coming from a different perspective. He had won the AEW championship. He had won multiple championships all across the world, including WWE. These two cut probably the best back and forth promo in Dynamite history, with Jon Moxley getting in Eddie Kingston's face, asking what his mother Ruthie would feel knowing that Eddie had gone down this dark path. He made a promise to Ruthie at her dinner table that he would watch out for Eddie and to keep him safe, and if that means he has to make Eddie say I quit in the middle of that ring to make sure he gets his head straight, he's gonna do it because he loves Eddie. While professional wrestling can be seen as toxic and over masculine, this story really does paint a different picture of masculinity for professional wrestling fans. Eddie Kingston and Jon Moxley have worked with each other over multiple years, so you know this match is gonna be good. It's not nearly as bloody as an affair as Moxley Omega, but it's the emotion of these brothers by choice having to beat each other down in order to get what each man wants. And you can tell this with the in-ring storytelling, with at one point Eddie Kingston wrapping his hand in barbed wire in order to put away Jon Moxley, but it isn't enough. Kingston becomes a man who is desperate, throwing in chairs, thumbtacks, every weapon imaginable. Kingston even at one point pouring alcohol on the open wounds of Jon Moxley from the thumbtacks. And this match probably has one of the best endings in AEW history, with Kingston flipping Moxley off and Moxley locking in the Billy choke with the barbed wire that Eddie tries to use against him earlier in the match. These two brothers by choice tear up the ring, and with a fantastic ending angle of Eddie refusing Jon Moxley's help to get out of the ring, Eddie Kingston is a main eventer, and I'll die on that hill. Number 8, FTR vs. the Young Bucks Full Gear 2020. Finally, after years of teasing on being the elite, these two teams finally meet in a pay-per-view match for the AEW titles. Was the build great? Honestly, no, but the in-ring storytelling was probably the best you could ever have on any professional wrestling card. Sometimes when booking any match, you just have to let the participants go out there, play the hits, do their thing, and not overcomplicate it, and that's exactly what this match does. The high-flying offense of the Young Bucks mixes so well with the old-school mentality of FTR. This clash of styles just works on so many levels. And finally, in the closing moments, FTR slips by trying to wrestle the Young Bucks style, leading to the Jackson brothers finally picking up the AEW Tag Team Championships. I feel like these two teams are destined to do this forever, and I'm not complaining. Britt Baker vs. Thunder Rosa Lights Out match, St. Patrick's Day Slam 2021. Let's be honest here, AEW has gotten a lot of warranted criticism over the booking of their women's division, but nothing was hotter in 2021 and 2022 than Britt Baker vs. Thunder Rosa. The reason why this sets this apart from the previous encounter between Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega is that you don't normally see extreme style matches for women's wrestlers in the United States. This match set both women into superstardom in AEW, making Britt Baker the cornerstone and final boss of the women's division, and making Thunder Rosa the biggest babyface at the time. These two women donned the Crimson Mask to set a statement for the AEW women's division, that it was different from what people were criticizing it for, and that it had the great potential in order to main event a Dynamite. The Fire Thunder Driver through the table is an excellent exclamation point to this mainstay of AEW history. In a post-match video, Brit asked TK if Dave Meltzer was gonna like it, and I think he did. Number 6, the Young Bucks vs. the Lucha Brothers, All Out 2021 Steel Cage match for the AEW tag titles. The Lucha Brothers are also a team that the Young Bucks feel destined to do this forever with, and I really don't mind. This was a grand spectacle to say the least, starting from the Lucha Brothers entrances to the final few minutes of the match. Penta sacrifices himself for his brother Rey Fenix, taking a super kick from Jordans that have been laced with thumbtacks. Rey Fenix does a big frog splash from the top of the cage, ensuring the Lucha Brothers win, while also ensuring that this is another great entry in the cage match history of All Elite Wrestling. Number 5, Orange Cassidy vs. Pac, AEW Revolution 2020. Man, I'm really glad we got this before the before times. Because this is truly a match that you need a live crowd in order to fully comprehend and appreciate. With his hands in his pockets, Orange Cassidy was generally seen as a comedy character in the world of professional wrestling. But the man behind the Orange Cassidy gimmick is quite the in-ring competitor, and we saw that on stage while wrestling the machine that is Pac. AEW made a fantastic statement with this, noting that it doesn't matter the wrestler's gimmick on their roster, and it doesn't matter their catchphrase or any of their merchandise or anything like that. What matters is what they do in the ring, and Orange Cassidy can go. We've seen that multiple times since then, but this was the first. And while Pac does irk the win over Cassidy here, the in-ring psychology that these two show, with Pac being shown off guard and having to actually take Orange Cassidy seriously, shows that no matter the character, you can still be an in-ring threat in All Elite Wrestling. With a star-making performance, Orange Cassidy has now become one of the mainstays of All Elite Wrestling, and it would be hard to see the company without this guy, or whatever. Number 4, Kenny Omega vs. Hangman Page, Full Gear 2021. The Kenny Omega vs. Hangman Page storyline should be the holy grail and the goal for any long-term professional wrestling story. These two former best friends and tag team champions tell a story that's not only about who's the better wrestler, but it tells an internal story with Hangman Page. Hangman Page does not only have to defeat the professional wrestling god in Kenny Omega, but he also has to defeat his greatest opponent yet, himself. Hangman Page has to conquer his past and his present in order to get the AEW title. He has to confront the mistakes he made in his friendships with the Young Bucks. He has to confront his current friendship with the Dark Order, and he also has to confront his own alcoholism and anxiety in order to get the courage to beat Kenny Omega. An in-ring match with years of psychology behind it, the final few minutes where Matt and Nick Jackson refuse to cheat to help Kenny Omega win is the exclamation point to crown the next babyface of All Elite Wrestling. I guess you could say through this entire story, Hangman Page finally learned what it meant to be a millennial cowboy. Number 3, Cody vs. Brodie Lee, dog collar match for the TNT title, AEW Dynamite, October 7th, 2020. With the tragic passing of the wrestling legend that is Brodie Lee, it is fantastic to see that his last match was the final star-making performance that the man, John Hubert, deserved. AEW not only has a fantastic legacy when it comes to steel cage matches, but also the dog collar match has become not only my favorite stipulation, but a crowning achievement of All Elite Wrestling. Following a very decisive victory from the Exalted One, Brodie Lee was finally given the stage to become the champion that we all know he could be, and the mainstay of a company. And while we didn't know it at the time, if Brodie Lee was going to have a final match, this is the one. A beautiful grudge match in every sense of the word. These two men go all gas, no brakes for the entirety of it. These two men set the statement of what the dog collar match should be. A feud ender. Two men who hate each other, finally settling their blood feud. No running, no hiding. The spots in this match are otherworldly, with Cody Rhodes sending Brodie Lee through a table via crossroads on the ring apron during a commercial. And the final few moments of this match are just something beautiful. Brodie Lee goes for a discus lariat, Cody jumps over him to deliver his own counter, wraps his head in the chain, beats him until he is a bloody pulp, and then pins him in the ring, 1, 2, 3, getting his no-hook pin back. This match does not only show the beautiful in-ring psychology that Cody Rhodes has, but it shows the gem that Brodie Lee really was. And no matter how much time passes, we will always miss the big rig. Number 2, CM Punk vs MJF dog collar match, AEW Revolution 2022. Now to go to the other side of what a dog collar match can really do for a feud when a title isn't on the line. CM Punk abruptly leaving the world of professional wrestling set a shockwave through the entire industry, not only through the wrestlers, but through the fans themselves. But what happens when the superhero creates the devil himself? I don't want to simply dwindle it down to this, but essentially this is a Mr. Incredible vs. Syndrome level feud. CM Punk inadvertently created the devil that is Maxwell Jacob Freeman, created the heel that has terrorized AEW throughout the entirety of its existence. MJF showed that not only is he the devil himself, but he is still that ADD boy who grew up in New Jersey, idolizing CM Punk and was then shamed by him once they were finally at the same level in the professional wrestling world. This match and feud does handle a lot of the criticisms that CM Punk got when he returned to professional wrestling. What happens when you finally get back to the world that you abandoned, the fan base that you abandoned, the people that you abandoned, and the love that you once had being gone that you're now asking for back? And this match has beautiful storytelling from start to finish. From CM Punk coming out to his ROH entrance, to the eventual face turn of Wardlow handing CM Punk the Dynamite Diamond Ring to finally put MJF away. Beautiful in every sense of the word, it's almost impossible to think of another blood feud that AEW has had that has gone off this perfectly. Remember, I said almost. Finally, our number 1 pick for the greatest match in AEW history so far, Cody vs. Dustin, Double or Nothing 2019. The long-term storytelling of AEW has been very rightly praised. But this is a feud that not only spans years, different companies, it spans generations of the same family. This match sees AEW make a statement on what it could do differently from WWE, and we finally got it in this long-awaited brother versus brother story. It's fairly simple to do a standard sibling rivalry in the world of professional wrestling, but this had more behind it, generational trauma, highs and lows of each man's career. And we finally got to see Dustin Rhodes, the former Goldust, have the match of his career versus his brother. A storyline that WWE totally screwed up. No WWE bollocks needed, no gimmicks, just two men who want to prove who is the better brother. A fitting tribute to not only the old school Southern wrestling style, but a beautiful tribute to their father, the American Dream. Cody breaking the double count in order to have a decisive victory over his brother, both men in blood and tears. You don't get better professional wrestling than this. And with the final impassioned promo from Cody asking Dustin to be his partner versus the Young Bucks at the following AEW event, he stated that he needed his brother now more than ever as he goes on his next journey. These two men showed the possibility and the beauty that can happen with any match in All Elite Wrestling. My description of this match does not do it justice. Please go check it out. And those are our picks for the top 10 AEW matches of all time so far. What is your favorite AEW match of all time? Let us know in the comments down below. Hope you guys enjoy AEW Revolution. This has been Extreme League Wrestling, and we'll catch you next time.